Alrighty.
I just love
That
the
was
intensity of that. Oh man, the hype, it just builds and builds.
good fun. I'm not sure if anyone actually saw that. But I
Hopefully
mean,
people watch the restream, like the archive of it, and hopefully they'll get to appreciate that.
yeah,
Awesome,
exactly.
awesome beat.
So yeah, we had a nice little intro that we added. John made a nice little bass line that builds up. That's pretty cool. So if you missed it today, you can always tune in tomorrow.
I always want to
I
make
think,
like just a 24-hour like YouTube video of just that bass line, like just like the percussive intro bass line. It never drops. It never actually like plays the rest of the song. Just this continuous build to nothing.
yeah, it's like a streaming marathon
Yeah,
of
yeah.
continuous building. Okay, sounds good. We are also doing a little streaming marathon of continuous building.
Excellent segue.
And we are building a holiday Hackday advent calendar. So the holiday Hackdays is what we're running right now. It's a virtual hackathon with the Superbase crew community. I'm going to post the link here in the comments. At least I think it only posts to YouTube. So yeah, if you don't see the comment, then maybe just make your way over to YouTube, wherever you're watching this. And yes, we're building an event calendar with a bunch of different functionalities. And maybe, John, if you want to move over to the checklist, maybe we can see.
Oh yeah, the checklist.
Oh yeah, the inspiration as well. So we're inspired by Egghead, as so often.
Oh, let's go like this. We'll get there.
Maybe take you off while you log in.
All right. You take me off. That's a good call. I'll pull up the proper one. Let's do this properly. Da, 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 da. Always prepared.
Well, we can always cut it out in the edit.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just get our editing department to cut it out. It'll be fine.
Hey YouTube,
right.
can you cut it out, please?
Yeah, the fine folks over at YouTube could just edit the video for us. That would be fantastic. All right, we're ready to go.
Sweet, marvelous.
I've typed in all the passwords I have, and now we have our advent calendar. So yeah, just to give a quick example of what we're kind of working towards. This is the holiday course release extravaganza that Egghead is running at the moment, where basically they're releasing a new course every day. And there's this special course that you should definitely check out. Good time to build something over the holidays if you want to learn how to build a SaaS product using Next.js, Superbase, and Stripe. I've heard this is a very, very good course. And that came out as part of this holiday extravaganza. And so we really liked this interface. And so we thought this would be a cool thing to try and recreate the functionality of this site with using Superbase. So we're building this with Superbase and Next.js. And so far, our application doesn't look nearly as pretty, and also needs the server to be running. But this is where we are at the moment. We're rendering out doors, which are similar to each of these little panels here. And at the moment, we're just rendering out a title. And then we have also built an admin interface, which is where we can enter in all the data that we need for a particular door. So we can add that content. And all of that data is stored in a Superbase database. So we have a doors table and an authors table. And the checklist that we've worked through so far is we created a Superbase project, some tables, an Next.js client. We rendered some stuff on the screen, turned on RLS and broke everything. And so that automatically denies all actions by default. And then we wrote some policies to be able to enable some of those actions. And so you'll see here that we have a policy where we're checking the time. And so you'll see that in our, if we go back to our landing page, you can only see 2 of these courses, whereas in the database there are 3, and that's because this SvelteKit course doesn't actually launch until the 10th of December. And at the moment, it's the 9th of December. So we're going to have to change that tomorrow. Or maybe,
Well, we'll just hopefully see it tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll just naturally happen. And that is the benefit of row-level security and policies. We can just kind of write that logic in the database once, and then ensure that anything that uses our database is going to have those rules enforced. So we don't want any of our awesome doors of content leaking before they go live. And so we want to check at that lowest level in the database itself that it's actually time for that to go live. We then did a little bit, we say styling the doors, but it looks like this. So we didn't do much styling. We were just kind of confirming that we had everything that we need and that Tailwind was wired up correctly. And yeah, we will do some more better styling on that soon. But for now, that's good enough. Yesterday, we added some auth to our application. And so if we come back here, if we go to our admin interface, you'll see that we can see this admin interface, but if we log out, then it redirects us to the login page. And if we try and go back to that admin page, we can't actually see it. And so the only way that we can see that admin page is if we sign in. So I'm going to sign in with GitHub and then go back to /admin. And now I can see that interface. So we've kind of protected this page from being accessed by anyone. You can only access this page if you're logged in. And later,
I think we've also protected the database from. So only authenticated admins can actually write to the database, right? That was the other great thing about row-level security. So we have a policy for that as well.
Yes, or I don't think we've written the role policy yet, but yeah, we will be enforcing that at a database level at the moment. Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, I see what you're saying. Yes.
Anyone who's authenticated,
yeah, that's right. So if they're not signed into the application, they can't actually insert into the doors table. And so even if something did happen to break or we hadn't written the rule correctly to redirect the user, and they could access this admin page, even if they tried to submit this form, they would still get an error because at the database level, we've enforced that only someone who's logged in with a role authenticated can actually write data to that table. We have, and that's basically all of those things. I guess we did build the admin page. We built out that form.
Yeah.
Beautiful form. We still need to implement file storage, which I think we will do.
Yeah, maybe should we do that next?
I think we should. I think that's an excellent idea. So implement file storage. And so, yeah, I guess our vision of this is that we would be able to, on our admin page, here we've just got an image URL, but it would be really good since Supabase already gives us file storage out of the box to be able to drag and drop an actual image asset into our form and be able to upload that and then automatically write that image URL to the database. So that's something we're going to look at doing today. And one example of someone who has done that very well is our friend Zenonia, who has built this awesome website. Do you want to tell them about Made with Supabase?
Yeah, I think so. Zenonia is on the Super Squad. So the Super Squad is kind of a assembly of basically Supabase advocates that pretty much do all the work we should be doing, but they are just so much better at it. So, and yeah, the Super Squad does a lot of amazing things. So they contribute to the client libraries, they build content, they help with docs and all of that. And Zenonia is a great developer. I think he's actually over here in, was it Malaysia, I think? So in our time zone, which is pretty nice, well, at least in my time zone. And yeah, he originally built this, I think, for a Supabase hackathon. So he was thinking, oh, what can I build with Supabase? Maybe I can build a project that holds all the things that were built with Supabase. And so he made with Supabase. And now actually, I think it has a couple hundred projects in there. And we actually collaborate with him for the hackathon. So if you look at this, I think it's made with superbase.com/holiday hackdays. That's actually the submission page for the hackathon. And so it's, I think, holiday-hackdays, something like that. It might be linked from the homepage as
There we go.
well. Already one project submitted. Nice. So someone is already done with their project.
Yeah, very early on that one. That's
early.
awesome.
Maybe they are on holidays, like they're going on holidays now. But yeah, so it's a really great collection of things that were built with Supabase. And so if you're curious, as you're doing a hackathon, what could you build with Supabase? You could go over to Made with Supabase and you could check that out. And so, yeah, the way you submit a project, you can actually upload a bunch of pictures. And that's exactly the functionality that we want to enable as well.
Yeah. So so here, if we click on this form, we can choose any image from our computer. And so it would be nice to build, probably won't get it looking as nice as this. This looks very nice, but build something similar to this so that we can upload an image for each of those doors or each of those pieces of content, which we
it would
will...
be sweet to have like a React component for that. So I think that is the plan, to have it in Supabase UI. So it is on the roadmap. It just isn't available yet. But yeah, that might be sweet. So if anyone maybe for the hackathon project wants to build a really sweet input React component, then they could contribute to Supabase UI, and that definitely would get you some swag.
It would definitely get you some swag and lots of thanks. And yeah.
And we have Hijabi Coder is, wow, it's very early for you again, right? But you're here every day. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's the third day in a row. It's very exciting.
Yeah, you should tell us about you. Do you have a Twitter or a YouTube, anything that maybe we can promote at some point somewhere? And I mean, hopefully you're participating in the hackathon, so we can get you some swag at some point as well. So that, you're waking up early is at least worth it.
Awesome. So yeah, this repo is Supabase UI, which Thor was just talking about, which is what we're using to render out our components in this form. So when we go to the admin interface, each of these is a component. We probably need to fix up some spacing. Maybe we should do that now. We don't want to talk about how pretty this form is and then just make it not look overly pretty. So we could probably just add some, I guess, margin bottom to each of these inputs. Going off topic already, off script. Margin bottom, let's say 2. Have a look at what that looks like. Yeah, maybe a little bit more.
I didn't know there was a script. Is that in the script?
Yeah, this conversation is definitely in the script.
Definitely scripted.
Maybe we'll go margin bottom 4. And let's just speed this up a little bit by doing some multi-cursor things and going, we want one there, and we want one there, and we want one there, and we want one there. And I guess we don't have anything under the button, so that's fine. And Pretty is going to go and fix all of my ugly layouts. It's beautiful. Awesome. Author doesn't look like it's, right, my bad. I put that on the select option, whereas I want that on the select. Beautiful. Much better. Almost as good as this not quite as good as this. This is very nice. We will need to do some kind of dark mode at some point. Make it actually look developer friendly. This doesn't look very developer friendly. Whoa, it's too bright.
Oh. Well, for us, it is the daytime, but in
Well,
the
that's
US,
true.
it's pretty dark already.
Yeah, so if you're watching if you're watching the stream later, it'll actually be dark mode. But right now, because it's daytime where we are, it's light mode. Yeah, good. My jokes land so well. When Thor doesn't laugh at them, it's just like horrible breaking silence.
Sorry. I wasn't
Need
sure.
to make sure you unmute your mic when you laugh hysterically at my jokes.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we probably want to add some file upload stuff. So which part of this do you reckon we should start with? Do you reckon we should add a form component first? Get that part of it working?
I guess so. Actually, it's a good question in terms of Superbase file upload. What's the docs? Maybe we should look at the docs. I actually haven't. So it needs to be kind of its own form.
Yeah. So we can say Well, yeah. How about we start with that? So we'll create a bucket to actually to hold this file first.
Yeah.
So if we go over to our Superbase instance, we can come over to this lovely looking little bucket here, little archive box, and we want to create a new bucket. And so a bucket is kind of just like you can imagine it as like a folder in like Google Drive or something like that. So it's just a space that we can put a whole bunch of files. Yeah, and so our bucket. Do you have a wonderful creative name for our bucket?
Well, I mean, in the end, it's just our doors. Should we?
It's
just roll with
creative.
Doors?
How about we say door content? It'll be our
door front.
Front door.
Front door.
It's the front door. Beautiful.
It's the front of the door. Very good.
So we can choose to make this bucket public. So what a public bucket does is it means that users can read objects within that bucket, so they can go to the URL and see that particular object. But if we want to actually enable actions like inserting, like writing to the bucket or deleting from the bucket, anything like that, we still need to write a policy. And I'm pretty sure we actually still need to write a policy for selecting from the bucket. It's just users are able to navigate directly to that URL if they got a hold of that URL. So if we were displaying a list of all of our courses, for example, like if we have a look here, each of these images, the user would be able to navigate directly to the image if they had a look through the network console or something like that to find out where that's hosted. And in our case, I don't think that's a problem. And so, yeah, let's leave our bucket public. And then we have our bucket. And so in here, we can start uploading files. And so we can put whatever we want in this. This is just like, as I was saying, just like a folder in Google Drive. It's just a cloud hosted folder where we can chuck stuff and then we can display it in our application. So if we head back over to the docs, the way that we can upload to a bucket is like this. So we can use the same Superbase library that we've been using throughout this, so the Superbase client, and we can say .storage, and then from whichever bucket we would like to upload to, and then we can upload a path. And so this can either be just the file name, or we could put it in a folder. So in this case, we're putting it in a public folder, and then the file name is avatar1. We've got the file that we actually want to upload, and then we've got some extra settings if we would like to set those. And so upsert means that we can upload the same file over and over and over again, and it's going to keep overriding that file. Yeah, if we didn't have upsert, then because we're inserting a new item into our bucket, it would be the same file, or it would have the same file name as a file name that's already in our bucket, and we would get an error saying that that file already exists. And so upsert allows us to say, if we set upsert true, that would mean even if that file already exists in the bucket, we can upload it over and over again, which would make it idempotent if you would like to get databasey on it. Cool.
Nice.
So,
and what does upsert, the upsert name is
yes,
from?
Yes, good call. So upsert is a combination of update and insert. And so what that means is if the file doesn't exist, then it will be inserted. And if it does exist, then it will be updated. And so, it's just like a nice way to protect ourselves from needing to write extra logic to handle if that file already exists. We can just say either insert this or update the existing one that's there to be this file.
Nice. I think with Firebase, you would say merge true or something like that.
Right.
Well,
yeah, my experience with upsert has come from like the MongoDB world, and all of those kinds of document databases usually have a way of upserting things. So yeah. All right. So let's start, I guess, by adding an input to the actual admin interface. So this is going to be our image URL one here. So maybe we'll just comment this out for now. We'll add another input, and the type can be file.
And then I think the name just needs to be the same. No, actually it needs to be different. You're right. Yeah. So I think what we'll need to do, kind of the sequence of things, right? We'll need to upload the file first, and then take the URL that we get back and maybe insert it into a hidden input field.
Oh, that's a good idea, yeah.
Which then has the name image, so that we then just, when we submit the form, just write the URL to that input field. Maybe.
Yeah, because then up here, we would be pulling that value out of our image element and storing it as image URL. And so that should all wire up quite nicely. I guess we might need to make this a controlled input, so it's linked to like a React state variable that we can write our URL to. But we can worry about that.
The value should be that's exactly. So the value is then basically the observed image URL.
Yeah, so then we would need to create that as an actual variable.
State.
Hopefully by the end of this video series, I will have re-enabled autocomplete, so you don't have to sit there watching me painstakingly type it out. But I feel like that's the thing you do after the final video. Yeah. All right, so we have an image URL and then set image URL. And this will be equal to use state. And initially, that's just going to be, should it be null or should it be an empty string? Empty string, because we're setting it to the value of an input. Yeah. If we set the value to null, we might have problems. Cool. And so then we will call this set image URL.
We can still use the empty string as a check to disable the submit button, right? I think that's also...
that's a good call.
Because basically we want... I mean, unless we make the image optional, which I think we've made it optional in the database.
Yeah, I think it is. So we could send it off to the design team, who might take days and days to get us that beautiful asset. All right. Well, let's step through how we would actually do the file upload part. I don't remember what the event is. There is one though.
Isn't it just on change?
Let's give it a go. So this will be where we'll be handling
change event, right?
The on change.
I believe so.
Cool.
Yeah, at the event listener change. Yeah.
Perfect.
So it should just be on change.
Handle upload here, and that's going to be an async function, and it will get our event, and then we're hoping that event dot target, and then I think it's index 0, because this will actually be an array of files.
So it's either event.target.value, which is the
.value.
first file in the array, or .files is the array of files if you're selecting multiple, and then you could say files 0. But I
didn't
think
realize you could do .value. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that will give you the first, and I think you can actually specify if you want multi-select or not. Right, that is multi. Okay, yeah, additional attributes is multiple could be set to false, I believe.
Okay. On the actual input itself, so we could say multiple
false
equals...
if we only want to allow one.
Can we do that, or should it be a string like that? If it's
I believe it should be a string. That's a good question, actually. So multiple Boolean. Oh no, yeah, Boolean attribute. Okay, should be a Boolean.
Okay, cool. And then, cool. So now we've got our handle upload. That should trigger this, and we should be printing out, hopefully, the name of our file. So let's have a look. You see that this isn't styled very nicely, so that might be something we'll look at doing in this video. Thank you, Thor. You're so supportive. Doesn't need to be perfect.
We can always open source it and ask the community to style it.
Absolutely. And you'll see that for some reason we have like a Windows path to that for some reason, but C drive / fake path /
that's what it does, right?
I guess
it basically that's exactly correct.
Remember C drives and D drives and E drives? God, it feels like a different time.
Remember when you had an actual CD drive?
Yeah, it's wild. All right, cool. So we have called this function and we've pulled out this value. And so now if we go back to our Supabase docs, we can see that that is basically this line. And so we're pulling out the file from our event.target.files, and in our case, event.target.value. And so this will be our file. We get rid of this. Oh,
there's one. Yep, brackets.
Cool. And then we'll get there. We'll learn where everything is. And then we want to upload to our bucket. So we can just copy this across and then modify it. So we get data and error when we await Supabase. Remember, this is Supabase client in our case, which I think is in scope. Is it? It is. Cool. So we've already got Supabase client. Then we're saying storage from front doors.
Front doors.
Did we do pluralized? Did we do an S?
I think
front door.
Oh
no, we need to change this. Just delete the bucket and start again. This is unacceptable. If everything else has been pluralized, this also needs to be pluralized. It's a fun word. All right, so we have our front doors. In our code, we can upload to our front doors bucket. We can then have a path. Now, I don't remember whether the path...
That's a path in the bucket, right?
Yeah, so if this folder doesn't exist, this public folder, then it will create a public folder within that bucket. I remember that being a good idea for some reason, but I don't remember if it's like a must-do good idea. But let's just leave it as that. So let's say public, just so that it's a little bit clear that these are our public. Actually, yeah, I think it does help us when we need to download the file. So let's leave it there. But we probably want to get the name from our file, and I think it might actually just be file.name. Let's just double check this. If I console log out,
although wasn't that just a string? Maybe it's e dot. That's a good question. Okay, let's see.
Let's have a look. Where's my Batman image? Name undefined. Okay. I feel like there is a way. What if we get it from files index 0? Does that give us a file name?
I think you need.
It does. Cool. Okay. So we'll go with
Okay.
this one. We'll go e.target.files and just grab the index 0. And this is safe
Gotcha.
to do here because we're specifying that it can only be a single
One. Yes.
thing. So multiple is set to false. And so we can just access index 0 and assume that's the one that the user is trying to upload. We can then get the file name dynamically, which means we can set this to be public. So this will be a folder that will be created within our front doors bucket. And then inside that folder, we will have whatever the file name of the file that we're trying to upload is. Yeah, do you reckon that's a good way to go about it?
Yeah.
Or should we actually let the user input what they would like the file name to be called? Nah. Users don't know what they're doing. All right. And then we want to pass across our file as the actual thing we want to upload to there. And then we'll leave the cache control set to 3600 so it doesn't heavily cache and stop us from being able to see. Or does this cache control, does this add a cache control value? So does this tell it to cache that value?
Question. So the cache control. Okay, what is it actually? HTTP headers.
Another perfect opportunity for some open source street cred. If you want to go and write the documentation we should have written about what the cache control actually does. Oh no, look, it's here.
Oh, okay.
I'm just not reading. So the cache control max age in seconds is a seconds value. Actually, no, that's all it tells us. Okay.
That's
okay.
all it tells us.
Let's set this just to, let's say 60 seconds. Well, we probably want it quite low while we're testing and development. But yeah, let's just go 60 seconds. We'll set upsert to true. And so we want to be able to upload the same file over and over again. And then once we actually get some data back, or potentially get an error back, because I suspect we'll be getting an error, we can display that out to the console, see what's going on. Keep going the wrong way. There we go. All right, so let's go to upload our Batman 3, and you'll see that data is set to null, and we have an error. What could have possibly gone wrong here, do you think, Thor?
We don't have a policy. So we've made the bucket public, but I think the public just means it is publicly readable, which is good, right? By default, you don't want people to just be able to spam up your bucket.
That's right.
That sounds like a euphemism, but it's not. So we need to create a policy for our front doors.
That's right. And so, yeah, so buckets themselves have their own policies. So you can write policies for our database. And something that's actually interesting, maybe this is a good point to demo this. I have to remember what it is now. But if we come over to SQL, we can select star from, is it like file upload? No. Let me just quickly look. List all Postgres DBs. Oh, using PSQL. That's not what we want. Just give us raw SQL. Because there are a collection of databases that Superbase set up and keep a track of for us. And so if we say select, shall we just select star from PG database?
Is it select that name from PG _ database?
Let's have a look. All right, so the dat name will give us more sensible things. All right.
Give me that name.
Give me that name. That name is there. Why didn't it? That name, son. Give me that name. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got template, and Postgres. So this is giving us the actual databases. So then we want a list of tables. Could we just say?
Wait, is that actually? Maybe we're actually not using PG underscore databases.
Here we go. Okay, so if we want to select the table name, yeah, let's just do that. We are going somewhere with this. Buckets. That could actually just be it. We got users. We got, so there are all these things, or maybe it was objects. Yeah, all these things that exist that either Postgres or Supabase kind of manage for us. And so if we say select star from buckets, we might need to add the schema to it as well. So the schema, so storage.buckets might be what we're looking for. Or it might just be that we need to put it in quotes. Storage.buckets. Boom. Cool. So we can actually inspect our database. So while our file storage is where we're storing our actual our files and all of our images and everything, we're still, Supabase is automatically maintaining this extra table for us called storage.buckets. And so this has a little bit of information about each of our buckets. And then if we go to storage.objects, so any file within a bucket is referred to as an object. Maybe just storage.object.
No, you were right. There's just nothing in there yet because we weren't able to upload anything yet. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So success, no rows returned, but success.
Okay. So we'll come back here and we'll see what actually gets inserted when we upload a file, because you'll see that there are a collection of rows that, a collection of columns that are populated for us that we might be able to use for something else interesting that we want to do. So let's get this file actually uploading. So the problem was, if we come back here, we were violating our row level security policy for table because we haven't actually written a policy to be able to insert into that bucket. And so if we go to our front doors bucket, our policies, and then under front doors, we can create a new policy. We can create these from a template. So this will allow anyone to upload a, it's funny that it says JPEG because it definitely doesn't force it to only be JPEG, but yeah, maybe we can fix that up later. So what do we actually want to be able to do here? So we want only,
I think, authenticated users.
Okay, so we want only authenticated. Should this be role, not email?
Yeah, so this is based
like some
on
of these
email.
names are a bit off. But yeah, let's go with this one and say, oh yeah, no, that switched to the right thing. So, so we want our bucket ID to be front doors. So if we don't include this line, I know this isn't something that we need to do when we're writing row level policies for our database, but if we don't include this bucket ID, then it won't associate it with this particular bucket. And so the first part of our policy needs to be the bucket ID, which is equal to that. And then we say, and then whatever we want our actual rule to be. So in this case, this has storage.folder name index 1 is equal to private. And so we don't care about that part. We just want to make sure that this is associated with our front doors bucket, and that our auth.role, so the person who is trying to do this, has their role set to authenticated. And then we can select which actions we want to enable this for.
Probably insert and update.
Yeah, and probably select as well, just so that, yeah, because I think.
But select is public, right?
I think the bucket being public just means that users can navigate to it.
Once you have the URL.
Yeah, but we can
Okay.
actually, let's find that out. Let's see if that's the case. So let's enable insert and update, because that's what we're trying to do with our upsert. We want to be able to insert and also update the same file. And so let's set this for insert and update, and then yeah, we'll see what we can do. So we've saved our policy there. Refresh this, upload that same file, and then we're getting another error. So this is saying that we're still violating row level security.
So maybe you have to have the select because it returns back the URL.
Precisely. Yeah. So you'll see, hang on, I'll point that out in a second. Users can read, users who are authenticated can read files from bucket. That's not going to let me be that descriptive. Cool. So that's just the same policy. Bucket ID equals front doors, and the role is authenticated. So now we have a select. And so, yeah, something that I wanted to mention is that even though we ticked both insert and update when we were creating the last policy, it's actually created two separate policies. So it's created a policy for insert, a policy for update, and now we've created another one for select. And so this is generally best practice when you're dealing with writing policies in a database. You want to, rather than writing big, complicated policies that account for every case and have lots of ands and ors and really complicated logic that's hard to reason about, you want to create these really, really simple single rules. And so you want them to be as small as possible so that they're really easy to maintain. If you needed to add something to update, but you didn't want it to affect insert, for example. So if you wanted to be able to insert as anyone who's authenticated, but then to update, you needed to be the user who owns that file, the original author of that file. Then you would want a separate rule for insert and update. And if you had written those as the same rule, so written one policy that covers insert and update, you would basically have to delete that policy, add a new one for insert, and add a new one for update. And so it's a little bit easier to maintain if you keep them all as separate rules. Even if at this point they're the same rule, you might find that later it makes it a little bit more maintainable and definitely easier to reason about when you have these really simple rules for individual actions. Does that make sense, though?
Yeah, at least the part that I listened to.
Excellent. Hopefully that wasn't much of it. Now, let's try to upload the same file again. Oh, look at that. We have data. Beautiful.
Lovely.
So what I was rambling about before is actually correct, where when you make a bucket public, it means that someone can navigate to those files, like navigate to the URL of those files. It doesn't actually change anything about you being able to select or read the files in that bucket using the Supabase client. So if you want to do that, you need to enable this select action.
Which makes a lot of sense. And it's actually something that I think a lot of folks run into issues with in general with policies, that they set up a policy for insert and update, and then they get an error when they try to insert. And the reason for that is that an insert will also do a select to return the inserted data, unless you specify that you don't actually want the data back. So I think that you can set a flag in the insert query, and I forgot what the flag is. I think it's like header minimal or something like that.
Yeah, this rings a bell.
And then you wouldn't need that. Maybe there is. If you look for policy, I think it's if you Google policy within that doc, does it give you anything?
Google within the doc?
Well, just search, sorry. Just a command
row level
F,
security,
I meant.
Policies. Hey, who's this guy?
Hey!
Beautiful.
What a face.
What a face indeed. I do remember seeing it somewhere.
Yeah. Somewhere, it is somewhere.
I can confirm Thor is not lying about this.
I think probably if you Google the error, which is like violates, then
Yeah.
you will find it somewhere. But hey, I mean, yeah.
There you go. This is where our documentation is
Oh,
on
wow.
Nico Fisher's site. That's the one, returning minimal. So you do
Returning
your
minimal.
await super
Yeah.
base from the table you want to insert it into, and then insert your values, and then an extra object saying returning minimal. And so this means that you don't need to write a select statement. So if writing a select statement would actually like compromise the security of what your application is doing, like you don't actually want people to be able to select it, then this might be a good option. Otherwise, you can just write a select policy that's going to allow that user to read it after it's being inserted.
Yeah, and maybe we should hire Nick Fisher to do some SEO for us.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Are you watching? Cool. Is he watching? All right. So we now have, if we have a look in our front doors and refresh, we should see that we now have a file. We have a public folder because that's what we created by specifying that as part of the path. And then we have our Batman 3 PNG. And then we can prove this is working in terms of the upsert by navigating to this. So if I go to Batman, no, this must be on my desktop, Batman 3, and we draw an extra line, you get to see my beautiful, beautiful artwork. Let's say a squiggly line and say, we love the Joker.
Nice.
Oh, look at that.
Ooh.
It made it actually nice for me. So
that's
now,
proper clip art.
if we were to refresh and come back here, and you'll see we had our big red heart there. You'll see that we get data because that has inserted correctly. And if we come back here and refresh, you'll see that big red heart. And so that's because we gave it the same name. So if we renamed this one Batman 2 and then stepped through uploading it and then refresh our bucket, we'll now have two files in there because they had a different file name. And so whether it overwrites the existing file or creates a new file is just based on that file name that we give it. Cool. So they're the same image, but
and then maybe we should, while it is uploading, so at the beginning of our handle upload, we should set a state variable to basically disable the form submit, because it's fine to submit the form because the image URL is optional. So it's fine to submit the form without an image. But if you choose to upload an image, we should then disable the form.
That's a very good idea. So
yeah, let's do that.
If we had an is uploading variable, oops, we can say is uploading and set is uploading. It's one of my least favorite things about this API for using state is this uppercase thing here, like having is uploading and then uppercase. It means you can't just go like copy and then set, paste.
It's true.
Come on. And initially we are in the state where we are not uploading. So is uploading should be set to false initially. And then when we actually want to handle our upload, so the user has chosen to try to upload something, we want to set is uploading to true. And then after we've resolved this, so whether we have a data or an error, either way, we've stopped uploading, and so we set it back to false. So now down here, as our form, is it just disabled? And then you give it a condition?
It's a good question. I generally just disable the button, but you're right. Otherwise, some JavaScript could be used to submit the form.
Sneaky,
well, I mean,
sneaky
JavaScript can always be used.
JavaScript can always break everything.
Yeah,
so
your backend needs to be secure.
That's right. That's right. And with row level policies, it is always secure.
It is.
So in order to be able to test this, just because it'll upload very quickly, I can just set this to true. And so we're in the default state of uploading. And so now we shouldn't be able to submit our form, which doesn't seem to be working. Let's try refreshing. All right, so let's say disable form submission. Just going back to the HTML basics here.
Yes.
On submit, we can run a thing. We don't want to actually do that, do we? Maybe we do it on the.
It is just a button. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it should be disabled set to disabled. I reckon disabled set to true will work. Okay, so let's take that off here and put it on our button. And now if we refresh, we shouldn't have any, yeah, that's now disabled. And so we can see that nice disabled state, which obviously is coming in from Superbase UI because we didn't implement that, did we? And so our button must have the ability to disable. Beautiful. Very nice.
Thank you, Johnny.
Thanks, Johnny. Love you, Johnny. Awesome. Okay. So we have a file upload, and so now that's getting into our Superbase bucket. But now we want to pull that value back out and be able to write an image URL to the database. So if we come back here, we're getting our data back, but we're not doing anything with it yet. So we're just console logging it out. So let's see what is in data.
So it's just data.key.
Data.key, that's the one. So that gives us back capital K. That gives us back the full path. And so that includes our bucket. So that's interesting. Let's have a think about this.
We still kind of want the whole public URL. So we actually do need to get public URL, right? Is that the from
yes, that
bucket get public URL?
Is this under storage? Where am I? This is
but it's in reference. Yeah, sorry, it's not in overview. It's in reference. Yeah, the docs do need some work.
Storage. What a perfect opportunity to get some open source street cred. Awesome. So if we give it, see, this is still split up over bucket and that. I wonder if there's a way to do it directly from the key, which contains both of those.
Interesting.
I guess not, but we could. That comes in from the file. Can you download from a key? No. Okay.
We don't want to download, but that's interesting. Yeah. So what's the point of the key?
Yeah, I feel like we should be returning it without the front doors part on the front. But we can just do that ourselves if we want. Or should we see what happens if we try and pass that full key? Let's see if it's already handled for us. So if we get back data and then we have data.key is going to be our URL for, the key for that item in our bucket, then we should be able to say Supabase client dot storage dot from front doors, and then we want to get
public.
What was it? Get public
URL.
Public URL, and give it a data.key, and then potentially that will give us back
the URL
file,
or
a URL.
It's actually called public URL instead of data, which is also interesting.
What do you mean?
So the return from when the promise resolves. Oh, wait, is it a promise? Okay, either the docs are wonky because they don't have an await. How could this be an async? Oh,
yeah, no, that has to be. It has to be async.
It actually is asynchronous because it literally just takes your client Supabase URL and appends, right? So that's why it's synchronous. That would be my guess, because otherwise, so it's just kind of convenience method.
Okay. All right, let's give that a go. So,
but it's not data URL; it's public URL. It's still an object of public URL or error. But if it's an error, okay, I'm learning a lot here. This is great. I'm so glad we're doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably could also just, actually build something myself and not have you type it all. But this is
it's easier having someone else type and dictating what they type. Much easier. All right, let's go Batman 2. Get back our object, and then our public URL is undefined. Yeah, so if we give it that key directly, it's not able to find it. So that seems like a silly thing for us
to
return.
But it still doesn't give us an error. That's interesting.
Yeah, so it's just saying it doesn't exist, because what we're doing isn't causing an error. Like we could say here, we want to get the public URL for John is cool. And that shouldn't give us an error. It should just, like if it can't find it, it would just give us undefined. So that, I think that part of it makes sense.
But does it actually do network requests? I'm curious now. Can you check your? I mean, it can't, right? If it's synchronous. I mean, it's open source. We can just Can we do a quick open source excursion and actually look at the Supabase? I think it's storage.js. And then, I mean, one neat thing that I generally do nowadays is just, you push the dot button and it opens basically VS Code in the browser for you.
That's right.
Do you do this as well?
You showed me this, and then I forgot which button you actually click, and I tried to find it again. I couldn't.
And then you just can use the Command Shift F to like search the whole code base, and then you just put get public URL.
I might not be able to do that. Might need to go here. Get public URL,
and then storage file API. It's so much better at finding things.
Awesome. So get public URL. So this is defining it, and yeah, it just
does some string stuff, does it?
Yeah.
Oh, no get promise. Final. Wait, what's get final path? Public URL. Get final path is just bucket ID /path. Okay, so literally it's just some string interpolation. Okay. I'll take it all back.
Okay, I trust
it. But then what's the error? Where does the error? Sorry. Does it ever error? Oh yeah. Okay. Catch error. Data null error. Oh, it does actually return data as well. Okay. Interesting. I'm glad we're doing this. All right. So now let's try actually doing it.
All right. So yeah, so we still have just data.key. It's weird if we have that that key that's being returned. It feels like we probably should have a different method that's like get public URL from key or something like that, which I don't think we have. We have a look in our documentation. One of these was documentation. That's the one. Yeah, it looks like get public URL is the only one that makes sense here. All right. Anyway, we can do this. Like this is easy to fix because here we're just putting a static value in here anyway, and so we could just say const bucket ID is equal to front doors, and then we could say from our bucket ID, and then here we can say from bucket ID, and then we can say data.key.replace. I mean, this would be a bad idea, but let's just do it. So anywhere where there's a bucket ID, we want to replace it with nothing.
We know our bucket and we know our file name, right? So should we just...
The problem is that if we had a, oh, you mean like just construct it separately, not use data.key?
Yeah. So basically just do exactly the one we have in the upload above, right? So public / file name. I mean, it seems, yeah. But yeah, I mean...
So again, because we're doing this over and over, maybe we'll say const file path equals this thing. And then it's a little bit clearer saying file path. And then we want to pull that public URL from our file path.
Nice.
Did I just delete something? Whoops. From get public URL. All right. So now we should have a public URL for our file that actually exists. And it doesn't actually check if it actually exists because it's just, as you were saying, depending on a convenience value. No, we still don't have a public URL. So our file path is public / that. And if we have a look at the documentation, that's what we should be putting in, our folder, and then the name of our file. And that's from our particular bucket, Supabase storage from that, Supabase client storage from that. What am I missing?
Looks good. What's it doesn't return anything?
We are getting our data is inserting correctly. And then we're not getting an error. We're not getting another error, which is our error from our get public URL. But we are getting undefined returned as our public URL. Maybe we'll just refresh, try one more time. Okay.
That's a good question.
Storage from bucket ID, get public URL. What if we try download? So download is another method.
But I mean, download would actually download it, right? Like, that's not what we want.
That's true. And that's set to undefined anyway.
Policy permission required. Permissions none, permissions none. Okay, so the permissions are required. It just needs to be a public bucket.
Yeah, so this should be selecting, but it's not even making a request to the actual bucket, is it?
No, it literally is just putting together a string. So I don't, wait, what? What's in the data?
That
We
would
get
be
return
funny.
data? Nah, but that can't be right. But the error is null as well, right?
Ooh, it does give us data back. And it gives
It
us
does,
the
but it's
object which has public URL. Okay, so the documentation
wait,
is
what?
meant to be data.
But it's the same public URL in the data as in the public URL. Can you check the console log again? Does it now give you a public URL as well?
No, public URL is still undefined.
Did we make a typo with public URL? Oh,
Is it meant to be
Jesus,
capitals?
public URL is capitalized. Okay, is it wrong in the docs then?
Oops. I'll have a look in a sec.
Wait, but that is not good, because okay, I think
Thor
I need
mad.
to make a PR here.
Thor
Because
thunder. Bring the lightning and thunder.
no, because it is called get public URL with URL lowercase, but then the return is called public URL all uppercase.
Yeah.
And that, sorry, my OCD. Okay.
Well, I think this is
Okay.
all, yeah, definitely opportunities for us to fix
Yes.
this stuff up. I think it's really good that we're stepping through this process. Because yeah, that's one thing to fix. And maybe we want to actually return the public URL as part of the upload. Like it makes sense that you would be able to like destructure data as well as public URL.
Let
from
me
here.
open an issue right now. Right now, John.
Let's do it. How about you share your screen and I'll share my screen and we'll do a split screen and you fix that while I implement the rest of this, and everyone will get twice as much value.
I'm not sure we can do the same screen at the same time.
That's fine.
But I mean,
right,
I think folks know how we can do an issue. I'll just open an issue. Maybe there's already one.
I was just staring. I'm sorry. All right. So if we now, so I guess we don't actually care about data coming in. Oh no, we do because we use it. Oh no, we're just console logging in. All right. So we now have our public URL. And so what we want to do is actually set that to this variable. Sorry, it's been so long since trying to remember what we're actually doing. We want to set this to our image URL. And so if we call set image URL and we pass it in our public URL, while you're running an issue, it might be good to add that, like maybe we could explicitly say in the documentation for this that this doesn't, like it doesn't need to have a wait in front of it because it's just a convenience method. It might be something good to call out so someone looking at that doesn't think it looks a bit odd not having a wait before it. Anyway, we want to set our image URL to be that public URL. And then just so that we can see it, maybe if we don't make this hidden for now, so we can actually see that input. So it won't look very pretty, but our content URL is linked to this unstyled input over here. And so if I now upload our Batman 2 again, you'll see that that is being populated with https:// our Supabase URL, and then /storage /v1 /object /public /front doors /public / and the name of our actual file. So that is quite a mouthful. That's quite a long URL. And so that's exactly why this convenience method exists. Because if we needed to stitch together all of that stuff ourselves, that big long path, that would be quite arduous. So it's nice that Supabase does that for us. So now that we have our image URL, if we actually submit this form, this will be automatically submitted as our image input, which if we come up here is then being used when we submit our form, our image is being used as our image URL, which is being written to the database. So that should all wire up nicely. We can go back to this being hidden. So type equals hidden, just so we don't actually see that on the page, because it's only used to kind of calculate that value and send it off to Supabase. But now this input has now kind of been replaced with this file upload, which goes and uploads the file to Supabase, gives us back that URL, and then we store it in this hidden input, which is the value that we would have manually put in this this image URL here. So we can get rid of that input. Cool. So our content URL, we still want that to be a URL and be a string, because that's where we're actually going to send the user, where we're going to navigate the browser to. So I think that's correct. So I think we've just finished doing uploads. I'm going to set this back to is uploading set to false initially. So we can still submit it. As Thor was saying before, the file upload, the door image URL is an optional field. And so we don't actually need it to submit the form. But if we start uploading one, we don't want the user to then be able to quickly click submit before we get that value back. And so that's why we're disabling that button while the user's uploading. So let's step through actually uploading a... I've made a typo. Error, so many errors. Well, I mean, nothing's going wrong now, right? So we can get rid of all of our errors. We don't need errors. We're also not actually doing anything with this, so we can probably just get rid of that.
We're not handling any errors.
When you're not handling any errors, you don't get errors, which is good. We don't want errors. All right, let's see if our form actually works now. So let's say that we want to enter in some data for day 5. Actually, again, we can do this properly. What was today's or yesterday's? I guess we could put in the 3rd, which I think was another.
Of the Tesla charger.
Yeah, it was another
Nice.
issue by Aaron. The next. Oh, look at us, God! We're so good. Going out live right now.
Such an inception.
And there's Nicki Minaj. We're still desperately trying to get her to endorse Supabase.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
And here we have the second video by Aaron Saunders. And so we can go through to that one. Awesome. So we'll call this one Tesla Charger Diary Application Sign In and Sign Up. And so that'll be the title. It'll be day 3, I believe, as long as we don't have anything for day 3 already. I guess I could just try and submit it, and then it would give us an error if that was the case. No, we don't have anything for day 3.
But we have an empty one.
An empty. Ah, that would be
I
what
guess
I just
that's
submitted.
a test one, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's clean that up.
So maybe we should disable the submit button until we have all of the...
Yeah, we could make the HTML inputs required, I guess, the ones that we want.
Yeah.
Should we quickly do that?
All right. We'll do all of our validation client side and call it a day. Required.
Although, I mean, didn't we have validation in the database?
Yeah.
Or did we not actually make them required?
I think we made things in the author table required, but I don't think these ones are. Nope, they are required. How did it do that?
Interesting. Empty. Oh, because empty string?
Yeah, of course.
The input value is empty string, which is technically a valid input for a text. Gotcha.
We can't do a validate.
I mean,
can we? No.
yeah, let's just make it
It's fine.
required on the client for
Yeah.
now. And
Solved.
Yeah.
That is required. And so this isn't required. So let's leave that not required. And our URL is required. Cool. Problem solved. And so now, if we keep going with our inputs, we want a description, which we can grab from here. And this one is from Aaron. And we can grab a copy of this OG image.
Yeah, it's funny. Basically, now we're just downloading the OG image and re-uploading it to Superbase.
Yeah. Exactly.
Don't tell the trees.
Let's just say course, so we can easily find that one. And then in our application, we can click browse and look for course under downloads. You can see my desktop and downloads folder are complete messes, and I should definitely clean them up. And then we want a content URL, and so that is the URL of this YouTube video. And when we submit that, we get data null because we have broken something.
Oh yeah? Do we get an error though?
Duplicate keys opening date. So we do have a day 3. Or maybe we messed something up in our logic for how we pull out the day. How are we doing day? We were going...
Yeah, day... No, so day
days.
3 should be...
Yeah, so that should be...
Yeah, that should be right. So 3rd of... Okay, have a look.
And then our opening date, we have the 1st, we have the 10th, and we have the 2nd.
Oh.
Is day index 0 as well? Like if I do day 4, and then we submit again, we get our data back.
No, but day should be the actual day.
JavaScript has JavaScripted us again. JavaScripted us again.
Oh, so the day is actually
index 0 as well. Okay, so that just means we need to -1 off here, like you would totally do. So we could turn it into a number, and then we could -1 from it.
Shut the front door.
It's so beautiful. And we might just add a nice little comment here saying JavaScript. And can we do a facepalm? Yes. All right. JavaScript. Cool.
Wait, but that's no. MDN says.
Let's have a look.
Integer value representing the day of the month. Default is 1.
So the problem is that it wasn't an integer value. We were giving it a string.
Oh.
So in that case, maybe we can just say...
Let's cast it
number.
To, yeah.
I think you can do number, right? That's an object representing number of any kind. Cool. Form data.get day. Give us a number, and we'll put it in there. So now if we were to make it day 5, let's just refresh. Day 5, test. This one is a test, and I am the one that tests, and it can be our... Where's our Batman gone? Cool, so that has correctly inserted. If I refresh. We have the 4th of the 12th, 2021, which
Didn't we put in
is
5?
5. So it is index 0.
Or is it time zone?
It could definitely be that.
Because it is time zone because your browser is in Australia.
Okay. Can you
Fucking
set
hell.
Thor? This is a
Sorry.
PG stream. You got to stand
Yes.
further away from the mic if you need to.
Our friends at YouTube, please.
If you could just edit that one as well, that would be great.
If you could edit that one out. Time zones are hard, man. Time zones are so hard.
So hard. Why are they so hard? Why do they have to be so hard? Okay. How do we get to UTC? Is UTC what we want to store it in? No, I guess it's GMT, isn't it? Is it GMT? Is that what 00
the
is?
Time zone of our database. Well, UTC and GMT is the same.
Right. Okay. So UTC, universal. That's why it's universal. Excellent. So we want to set new date to UTC in JavaScript. Date.utc. Perfect.
But okay. Date.
But that'll change it to that might work. Wait, what are these numbers? What are all these? So we have 96, so that's the year. We've got 1, which is...
Okay, date.utc. Yeah, so year, month, day. So we should be able to do this. Well, basically keep everything you have, yeah. But just do like an inception within the date. Okay. We're figuring this out. We're making our way around the time zones.
All right. So we want a new date that is set to date UTC 2021 that would still be index 0 for the month, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But our number should now be that. So now...
Okay.
See, we thought the whole stream, like multiple days of the stream, would be us working out that policy to enable access based on a date. But it turns out it's just going to be time zones, everything else. See, the time zones are just like spending the whole time trying to name things. All right. So now if we do 6 and we submit, we get our data back. And if we refresh, come on, 6. Okay, cool. Awesome. So that's fixed it.
All right.
Perfect.
Nice.
Good job, Thor.
Now we just need to delete all the... Yeah, I remembered we're living in the future, so...
It's tough living in the future.
Our database...
No one understands you.
It is tough.
So we have 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Cool. So we should now have our 3 days here. So if we go back to our landing page, we have 3 days, as we're expecting. So we probably want to when we add
the picture.
Hey, that's a great idea. You're going to make me do styling live again, aren't you?
Oh, we can actually in the upload form as well. Because when we handle the upload, we get the public URL. Let's just render the picture out. Let's do a little bit of Sononia magic.
Perfect. Yeah, so we should also maybe make it look slightly nicer. Something like this.
Yeah. Well, we can always do that later.
Well, thankfully, it looks like he is also using our friend Tailwind.
Are we sure though? I think
no. But this is a div anyway, so that he's probably using. I bet. What's it called? Drop zone.
He's windy CSS.
Windy CSS. Okay, maybe this won't just work. What do you actually style on a file input?
Next kind of thing. Yeah. Let's not bother.
All right. Well, style.
Because
file,
I'm getting hungry.
upload,
My lunchtime is
input.
coming up.
Okay. I see. Let's just see if it's simple. So we can add a label for it, and then I think we can make the input hidden or something. Yeah, like this. And then you can style the actual label. So I'm assuming if we went, this will be on the admin interface. If we have our input, we could create our own label, and we could say hello, and we could make this a HTML for our file. And then here we could set the class name to equal hidden, I think it was. And then we see hello, and if we click hello, no, we get nothing. Does a HTML4 need to link to an ID?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so that's now working. And I'm assuming if we were to drop a file on there, does that work? No. Okay. So we'd have to do something fancy with making like a proper drop zone. But we could just add just some quick styling to say class name equals width full, background gray 200 maybe. That did not make it width full. Maybe we need to be a block level element. There we go. We want a whole bunch of padding. So let's say padding 4, maybe padding 8. And then we want to center this. Do you reckon it's just text center? Ah, God, Tailwind is so good. So good. And then like say text gray 700, I don't know, looks a little bit, whatever. And we can just make this text click to upload. Beautiful. How do you feel about that?
Sure. Yeah, lovely.
Beautiful. Image. And maybe we'll give it a little bit of margin above and below of like 4. Oh, actually, what were we doing on the other ones? We were doing MB4. All right, nice. Beautiful. All right, so if we come back to here, we have implemented our file storage. I think that's what we pretty much wanted to spend most of this stream on, right?
That's it.
Cool.
Are we rendering our image now? When we after uploading it?
I thought you were just saying don't do it. I thought you were saying you were hungry.
No. Yeah, I didn't want you to style the upload.
Okay.
But
You wanted me to stop wasting
I want
time.
to see the image. No, it looks
So,
nice.
Do we want to put the image in place of this input maybe?
Yeah, we can.
Because I guess we could just say basically.
Or we could just put it underneath.
Yeah, we could just put it underneath. We could do that. We could say we want to display an image with its source set to image URL. That's not what it is. Image URL. And we probably only want to display this if we have an image URL, we can probably make this more explicit and say if it's not an empty string, image URL does not equal empty string, we want to display that. Whoa!
Beauty.
Nice.
Works.
Do we want to make it a little bit smaller?
I mean, we could.
And we could say the max width can be, well, that's not how you do that. Max width can be XL, and then we can say MX order. Did
Beauty.
it.
Love it.
Ship it. Go to prod. It's ready. And we want an bottom of 4 again, just so we push this next bit down. So now the flow would be, we would, actually maybe we could even make it slightly more fancier, and go click to upload image. So we could display this if we're not uploading. So not uploading is uploading. Then we want to display that. Otherwise, we want to display uploading. And now if we were going to enter in a test record, let's say for day 7, and this was going to be our blah blah course. And let me just do that, make it John. And then we see click to upload image. And then if we click here and start uploading, it'll flick to uploading. And then when it's done, we'll see this beautiful image underneath. And then we can add our content URL to some shameless self-promotion and submit. And then we don't get any feedback. So maybe the last thing we can do is actually redirect the user maybe to the landing page after we've done that. So after we submit, so this is our handle submit. At the end of here, rather than printing out the data, we can navigate the user. To do that, we'll bring in use router from next router, and then const router equals use router. You don't need autocomplete or documentation if you just know everything. And then here we can say
true.
router.push to the landing page. And now if we were to go through this flow again, so let's say this is for day 9, can be similar title, same image. And then when we submit, it will take us back here. And we can see our beautiful blah blah and blah blah's entries there. And if we were to delete our test records, we can confirm that they are indeed gone. Cool. So
maybe as a last step, should we add the images to the doors on the front page?
It's an excellent idea.
And then we'll have lunch.
That sounds great.
Well, wait.
Yeah. So we'll go through, we'll add the images. We'll then, if there's any questions from anyone who's watching in the chat, maybe think about questions and start entering them now. And then we can answer anything on our way out. And then we will do a quick recap of what we've done. And then Thor can finally eat. God of Thunder, hungry! Need to eat lightning bolts! I hope that's not offensive. I'm sorry. All right, here we go. We have doors. We want to add a nice little image here. And so we've got our anchor tag. Inside here, we can add an image. And our source can be our door.image URL. It's that easy.
Done.
Ship it. That's beautiful. Okay. So maybe in the next video, we can spend a little bit more time maybe styling this out. Yeah, we should have a think about what would be good little last things to implement. Because yeah, I think roles would be good. Oh yeah, we wanted to add likes and comments and things. Okay, so maybe tomorrow will be.
Yes, I think tomorrow we'll
one.
do the real time. I think that sounds nice.
Yeah, in that case, we can do a little bit of quick styling here. We can just maybe make this.
Hijabi Coder says John is too funny. All right, only John is funny.
I like it. You can be God of Thunder, and I will be God of Comedy.
Is there such a god?
It must be. And bottom 2, let's give it a little bit of space, push things down underneath a little bit. What am I doing? That's on the A tag. All right. So this is this. Our image is going to have a class name, and we can push the bottom down a little bit, maybe 4. And then maybe we can make our door.title, we can put that in a span. And we can chuck a class name on that. And we can make it just this bolder thing. Oh, Tailwind, you've let me down. Tailwind. Bold, font bold. It's me, it's not them. They know what's up. So we've got some font bold. Can we make it less bold? We can make it semi-bold. Semi-bold. Or is it just semi-bold? Font, no dash. Okay. That looks nice. And then maybe we could have a little bit of our description as well. These can probably both be paragraphs, actually. Or this is probably a heading. See, that's something that I actually really like about Tailwind is that it basically unstyles everything by default. And so just then I made this a span because I was like, I don't want default styling to be on it. And so I won't make it a heading. I'll just make it a span and then I'll style it how I want. And they kind of just take away that problem by resetting everything and you needing to style everything from scratch. It means that you actually use semantic HTML, or hopefully use semantic HTML, because you don't have to kind of go through the whole process of unstyling the default styling and then making it look like what you want. You can make it a H2 or a H1 or a H3 or whatever you want. And since we already have a H1 on this page, we want this one to be a H2. And we can do that without affecting how it looks and then just change it to look how we want. I think that's really cool. I should probably put a max height on these. But what would I want it to be? 20? 10? Oh, that's the whole thing.
I think that looks nice.
Hang on. It should be on the image. $20. $20? $30? Is this actually doing anything? Maybe 20 is as high as it goes. Or maybe I should be doing Excel instead of Tailwind. What's going on here? Come on, max height. Thor's hungry. Don't make me step through all this. Max height 20. Right, and then we go up in increments of 4. That makes sense. So we would say 32. That that looks pretty good. That's a good height. And so then if it does, if the width is actually bigger than that, then we can just do MX auto, bring it back into the center. Or, no, that's fine. It's beautiful. It's good. No, we're going to do one more. All right, we're going to go width is going to be full. And I think it's just handled it nicely for me. But I was going to set object fit to be cover, object cover, object cover. Beautiful. And then maybe we can make this a little bit bigger. So let's say the max height can be 38. And by max height, I now just mean height. No, it didn't work. It's broken. I like that you keep saying success noises because you want to go eat. We're not done till we're done, Thor. That looks beautiful, doesn't it, Thor? The last thing we need is a description. So we can say description. And that is looking good, but probably a little bit too much. So we can say margin bottom 2. To push that down a little bit, maybe margin bottom 4. And then here we can say class name equals. I wonder if there's an easy way to do the
like a hover
ellipsis stuff. Hover.
Oh, ellipsis. Oh, okay.
How do you do? So what would truncate be? Truncate. Oh yeah, that works.
Okay.
It's a little bit over if it's...
Yeah.
But if we make this truncate as well, then they're all the same size, which is what we want.
Perfect.
And if we really want to, is it title? What is the element for that hover title thingo in HTML? Tooltip? Title?
That's a thing?
No, maybe not. Maybe I'm just lying.
Oh, does HTML have a native tooltip?
I think if we say maybe title.
Oh, like info or something.
Title. Oh yeah, maybe. So now on this one, yeah. So we hover over it and we get the full title. Whereas if we hover over this one, we don't. And so if we wanted to add that down here as well, we could say the title of this is our description. So then if someone wanted to see our really long description, they can hover over it. That's good enough for now, right?
Fabulous. That's
good enough for lunch.
That is good enough to break for lunch.
Perfect. Cool.
And
so we should do a quick recap.
To recap.
Okay. So to recap, we had just a static text field like this content URL to put our image URL at the start of this video. And so the majority of this stream, we've just been stepping through how to implement uploads. So we can do file uploads. And so this is a file input field. And when we upload a file, it goes off to Supabase and writes that to a storage bucket. So in Supabase, we created a new bucket called front doors. And then in that bucket, each of the images that we upload goes in a public folder, and then the file name of our image. And then every time we upload that, when it's finished uploading, we create a public URL, which we then write to the database. So in our table for doors, this big long URL here is our Supabase URL, and then /storage/v1/ blah, 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 to get into our bucket and then to get into our file that we've just uploaded. And so we're storing that on the door itself so that we can really nicely display that on each of our doors here. And in order to secure our bucket, we needed to step through writing some policies. So policies on buckets are very similar to our policies in the database, but we write them slightly differently. And so one of the things that we need to always do is make sure that we include the bucket ID for the bucket that we want to associate that policy with, and then what we actually want the policy to do. So in this case, we have no one is able to delete from our bucket, and we have written a policy to insert, update, or select, which are all the same policy that's just checking whether the role is set to authenticated, which if we get time tomorrow, we will be implementing role-based authentication or role-based authorization, where only the users who have the role of admin will actually be able to upload images or create doors or anything like that. Because at the moment, any user who is logged in is able to do that stuff. So yeah, we might look at doing that tomorrow. And the last thing that I just remembered I forgot to come back to was I said that we would have a look at some extra data that is actually stored about each of those objects. So if I run this select star from storage.objects, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of information that's stored in our database about the files in our buckets. So we have a bucket ID, that's what it's in. We've got a name. But yeah, one thing I wanted to show is that it does this very convenient thing where it automatically gives us an owner. And so because I've been uploading all of these files as that same, as me who's logged in, it actually associates that file that I've uploaded with me. So I'm the author of that file or the owner of that file. And you'll see that that ID maps to my currently logged in user, this one. And so that might give you a little hint as to how you do some more interesting stuff with policies if you did want to enforce that only the person who was the owner of that record was able to update it, or only the owner of that record was able to, the owner of that file was able to delete it and things like that. We also get a bunch of metadata about like the size of the file and what kind of file it is, that they're all JPEGs or PNGs, and what our cache control is for that specific image. But yeah, there's lots of information that we have that is automatically kind of maintained for us by Supabase, which is super cool. And with that, I think we're done, unless there are any questions.
No, I think the last comment was John is too funny, and that made me very cross.
The truth hurts sometimes.
It does indeed. Well, I mean, you are very funny.
I am very funny. I think you're funny as well, if it's any consolation.
Thank you. All right, and with that, we will move into the outro, and we see you all tomorrow and on the interwebs. If you have any more questions that come up later, you can always just tweet at us. Okay, have a great day or night ahead wherever you are. Bye-bye.
Thanks. See ya.